The bus driver continues and says the oldest person lives directly west of the 10-year-old. We knew the oldest person had to live in the north, and now we know that the oldest person has to live west of somebody. So the house that's in the north and the west would be the oldest person's house. So which house is that? House number 1. So he's living north of the boy that likes to kick and west of the 10-year-old. And directly west means that the 10-year-old must have house 2. So that's giving us a lot of information. So we know the oldest person lives in house 1. So we're going to put an O in that row. And then we can put X's in the rest of that column. And in the rest of that row. And then going back to what we just said, he lives directly west of the 10-year-old. So he said that the 10-year-old had to live in house 2. So we're going to put an O for 10-year-old in house 2. And then we'll put X's in the rest of that column and the rest of that row. And we know that the 10-year-old can't be the one that's doing the kicking because the kicker lives in one of the southern houses and the 10-year-old lives in the northern house, house 2. So the age 10 will not be the kicker. So we're going to put an X there. So that's given us a bit of information there. Let's keep reading about what the bus driver says. Also, I'm told that Jimmy, who lives directly north of the kid who punches. Jimmy lives directly north of the kid who punches. But we already knew that Jimmy's not the oldest person. Miss Weebles told us that. So he can't be in the house that the oldest person lives. So he must be in house 2, which then we say is Jimmy's house. And then we can put X's in the rest of that row and in the rest of that column. So that tells us that Jimmy has to be the 10-year-old. So let's just put that information in this row, and we'll X out the rest of that row and the rest of that column. So going back to what Ms. Mitch said, Jimmy lives directly north of the kid who punches. And that tells us directly north of the kid that punches. The kid that punches then must be in house 4. So we go to the punch row, and we know that person has to be in house 4. And we'll put X's in the rest of that column and in the rest of that row. It's only house 4 has the person that likes to punch. Okay, so we're getting a lot of good information here from the bus driver. And we just continue reading, and she says, Jimmy wakes up especially early because his house gets lots of morning sun on the east side. And we already could figure that out, that he was on the east side. The 11-year-old likes living on the west side so he can sleep late and dream about his crimes. So the 11-year-old will be on the west side. And we already know that the 11-year-old, if we look at this row, can only be in house 3 or 4 And which one is on the west side? The house 3 is on the west side. So the 11-year-old must be in house 3. So we're going to put X's in the rest of that row and the rest of that column. And that tells us that the 9-year-old has to be in house 4. So we finished all the information in that lower box there.